Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda. Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda. Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda. Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. We are reading today on Sri Gaura Purnima from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, Chapter 4, the confidential reasons for the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Text 55, which also appears as verse 5 in the first chapter of Adi Lila. Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikritir Hladini Shaktir Asmad. Ekatmanavapi Bhuvi Pura Deha Bedam Gatau Tau. Chaitanyakyam Prakatam Arjuna Tadvayam Chaikyam Aptam. Radha Bhava Juti Suvalitam Nomi Krishna Swarupam. Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikritir Hladini Shaktir Asmad. Ekatmanavapi Bhuvi Pura Deha Bedam Gatau Tau. Chaitanyakyam Prakatam Arjuna Tadvayam Chaikyam Aptam. Radha Bhava Juti Suvalitam Nomi Krishna Swarupam. Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikritir Hladini Shaktir Asmad. Ekatmanavapi Bhuvi Pura Deha Bedam Gatau Tau. Chaitanyakyam Prakatam Aduna Tadvayam Chaikyam Aptam. Radha Bhava Juti Suvalitam Nomi Krishna Swarupam. Vaishnavis. Radha, Srimati Radharani, Krishna of Lord Krishna, Pranaya of love, Vikriti, the transformation, Haladini Shakti, pleasure potency, Asmat, from this, Eka Atmano, both the same in identity, Api, although, Bhuvi, on earth, Pura, formerly, Deha Bhedam, separate forms, Gato, obtained, To, these two, Chaitanya Akyam, known as Sri Chaitanya, Prakatam, manifest, Aduna, now, Tatdvayam, the two of them, Cha, and, Aikyam, unity, Aptam, obtain, Radha, of Srimati Radharani, Bhava, mood, duty, the luster, Subalitam, who is adorned with, Naomi, I offer my obeisances, Krishna Sorupam, to him who is identical with Sri Krishna. Translation: the loving affairs of Sri Radha and Krishna are transcendental manifestations of the Lord's internal pleasure-giving potency. Although Radha and Krishna are one in their identity, previously they separated themselves. Now these two transcendental identities have again united in the form of Sri Krishna Chaitanya. I bow down to him who has manifested himself with the sentiment and complexion of Srimati Radharani, although he is Krishna himself. Purport: this text is from the diary of Srila Sarupa Damodar Goswami. It appears as the fifth of the first 14 verses of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. We'll also do the next verse, which has a more substantial purport. Radha Krishna Eka Atma Dvideha Dari Anyonye Vilase Rasa Aspadana Kori. Radha and Krishna are one and the same, but they have assumed two bodies. Thus, they enjoy each other, tasting the mellows of love. Purport: the two transcendentalists, Radha and Krishna, are a puzzle to materialists. The above description of Radha and Krishna from the diary of Srila Srupa Damodara Goswami is a condensed explanation, but one needs great spiritual insight to understand the mystery of these two personalities. One is enjoying in two. Sri Krishna is the potent factor, and Srimati Radharani is the internal potency. According to Vedanta philosophy, there is no difference between the potent and the potency. They are identical. We cannot differentiate between one and the other any more than we can separate fire from heat. Everything in the Absolute is inconceivable in relative existence. Therefore, in relative cognizance, it is very difficult to assimilate this truth of oneness between the potent and the potency. The philosophy of inconceivable oneness and difference propounded by Lord Chaitanya is the only source of understanding for such intricacies of transcendence. In fact, Radharani is the internal potency of Sri Krishna, and she eternally intensifies the pleasure of Sri Krishna. Impersonalists cannot understand this without the help of a Maha-Bhagavat devotee. The very name, Radha, suggests that Srimati Radharani is eternally the topmost mistress of the comforts of Sri Krishna. As such, she is the medium transmitting the living entity's service to Sri Krishna. Devotees in Vrindavan, therefore, seek the mercy of Srimati Radharani in order to be recognized as loving servants of Sri Krishna. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally approaches the fallen conditioned souls of the Iron Age to deliver the highest principle of transcendental relationships with the Lord. The activities of Lord Chaitanya are primarily in the role of the pleasure-giving portion of his internal potency. The absolute personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is the omnipotent form of transcendental existence, knowledge, and bliss in full. His internal potency is exhibited first as Sat, or existence, or in other words, as the portion that expands the existence function of the Lord. When the same potency displays full knowledge, it is called Chit, or Samvit, which expands the transcendental forms of the Lord. Finally, when the same potency plays as a pleasure-giving medium, it is known as Radhini, or the transcendental blissful potency. Thus, the Lord manifests his internal potency in three transcendental divisions. Translation again. The loving affairs of Sri Radha and Krishna are transcendental manifestations of the Lord's internal pleasure-giving potency. Although Radha and Krishna are one in their identity, previously they separated themselves. Now these two transcendental identities have again united in the form of Sri Krishna Chaitanya. I bow down to him who has manifested himself with the sentiment and complexion of Srimati Radharani, although he is Krishna himself. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militang Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I always meditate on the beginning of the purport. The two transcendentalists, Radha and Krishna, are a puzzle to materialists. They can also be a puzzle to devotees. How is it the one appears as two and the two appear as one? First of all, as the purport instructs us, we need to be well grounded in Achincha Bheda Bheda Tattva. Lord Chaitanya gave us the insight of simultaneous oneness and difference. You may think this is just some kind of philosophical concept or formula. What's it got to do with the loving exchanges of Radha and Krishna? But unless we understand how Srimati Radharani is one with Krishna yet different from Krishna, unless we understand that, we cannot experience the Radha, we cannot understand, what to speak of experience, the Radha Krishna Pranaya, the loving affairs between Radha and Krishna. So Krishna Das Kaviraj is taking great pains to make sure we're well grounded in tattva, the scientific understanding of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead always includes his energies. He's the potent, but you cannot separate the potency from the potent, just like you cannot separate heat from fire. So first we need to establish that understanding, and then we can proceed further. And in this way, get a glimpse, by the mercy of Sri Sri Gaura Nitai, get a glimpse into the topmost truths, the topmost experiences of Radha and Krishna and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. How the one becomes two and the two become one. You've often heard me explain how both Krishna and Lord Chaitanya are Swayam Bhagavan. Both are the original personality of Godhead. You've often heard me explain that when Krishna wants to taste love of himself in separation, he appears as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wants to be the supreme enjoyer, he appears as Krishna. These are the mysteries of Bhakti. How to understand simultaneous oneness and difference. Here's an example using the cow. The cow is the same as the milk, because without the cow, milk has no existence. So you could say that the milk is the energy of the cow. Both are dependent on each other. No cow, no milk. But if you boil the milk, you're not boiling the cow. So there's difference. So this is how Shakti Shaktivato Abheda, the Shastra says. The Shakti, the potency, is identical with the possessor of the potency. So what is this about? Radha and Krishna are one and the same, but they have assumed two bodies. Thus they enjoy each other, tasting the mellows of love. So they're one and the same, but they have assumed two bodies. When did they do that? Radha and Krishna are the exchange of love. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nahayanya. And Lord Chaitanya is Radha Krishna combined. So when is it that they separate, then they combine? What is going on here? You see, in the spiritual world, there is no conception or no reality of material time. Past, present, and future in the spiritual world exist simultaneously. Try to understand that. Past, present, and future exist simultaneously. But just for the sake of trying to get our understanding, just for the sake of our trying to get a grip on this topmost transcendental reality, we read and say things like, when Krishna wants to taste love of himself in separation, when Lord Chaitanya wants to be the supreme enjoyer. When Radha and Krishna are one, and then they separate into two, then they recombine as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It seems like we're speaking about a time-bound situation, but we're only speaking like that because that's the only way we can communicate. It's not that Radha Krishna Leela is affected by material time. The first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam states, Janmadi Yasataha. The absolute truth is that from which everything emanates. As we often point out, everything means everything. Therefore, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur emphasizes in his commentary on this verse, and as Srila Prabhupada relates to us, everything coming from the ultimate source includes Adi Rasa, the original rasa of the attraction between male and female. How that can exist in spiritual perfection is the greatest mystery. But if you're truly to understand Srimad Bhagavatam, if you're truly going to understand Janmadi Yasataha, you have to include Adi Ras, the loving affairs between male and female. That has to be included. Otherwise, how is the absolute truth complete? So until there is some understanding of the science of the Supreme that includes Adi Ras, how can that science be complete? How can it be all-inclusive? And in the material world, what do you see? The conditioned souls are totally absorbed in male-female affairs, whatever the gender permutation that currently they're into. Still, it's basically male-female. Where does that come from? Why? Unless we understand Adi Ras, we'll be condemned to think there's nothing beyond material sex life. So this is one reason why the Acharyas are so opposed to Mayavad philosophy. That the ultimate is impersonal, no relationships, no flavors, no rasa. The result of all that is people will simply cling to mundane sex life. And they'll wonder, is there sex after death? They don't know anything else. They don't know what is the origin of it all. What's the origin in perfection? In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains, Urdhva Moolam Adho Shaka. This material world is the upside down manifestation of the spiritual world. So what is the highest thing in the spiritual world becomes the lowest thing in the material world. So in the spiritual world, the highest thing, and that means beyond Vaikuntha, the highest reality of Golok, Vrindavan, the highest thing is unmarried boys and girls associating with one another. And in the material world, that's the most abominable thing. People don't like to hear that. Oh, it's just natural. It's just part of life. But what's the origin of it all? And in material existence, that attraction causes so many complexities, so many problems. And in the spiritual world, you cannot get to the end of the perfection of Adi Ras. So this gift of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is so important because Mahaprabhu is demonstrating what is beyond even Vaikuntha, beyond even the Vaikuntha liberations of residing on the same planet as the Lord, sharing the same opulences as the Lord, being in personal proximity to the Lord, having the same form as the Lord. What's beyond that? So in the previous chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita, you witness Krishna's deliberative processes, his thinking process. Let me come to the material world and demonstrate my Braj Leela. Let me demonstrate pastimes that will drown the whole world in ecstasy. Krishna does that, as you know. But then later, Krishna thinks, this is not enough. I've demonstrated these Leelas, but what about the knowledge of them and the taste of them? Krishna wants to teach and distribute the science of rasa. Only Krishna can do that. So the time of the Yuga Dharma coincided with this personal, intimate desire of Krishna. Yuga Dharma work, the Dharma of the age, is done by Vishnu. Maintaining the cosmic manifestation, as you know, is done by Vishnu. Killing of the demons is done by Vishnu, embedded within Krishna. But only Krishna himself, as Swayam Bhagavan, can distribute the flavors of rasa. And he does that as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because first of all, he's got an agenda of his own, besides giving you the taste, which is totally abnormal. Krishna has a desire of his own to understand and experience what his dearmost devotee is experiencing. And he can't do that as Krishna. Often the question is raised, can there be something that Krishna can't do, since he's the cause of all possibilities? Can he create something that he can't solve? Is there any mystery for Krishna? Yes. Solving mysteries is fun, and Krishna is thinking, what is it that my dearmost devotee is experiencing and loving me? What's it like to take her position? What's it like when she tastes my qualities? What does she taste? What's that sweetness in me that she tastes? So there's her position. What's it like to be a lover of myself? Krishna's wondering. She's my lover. She loves me. What's it like to love me? And then, what about the happiness she feels in loving me? What's that like? How to experience that? He can't do it as Krishna, but he does it as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the Harinam Sankirtan is the Yuga Dharma, the Dharma for the age. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu demonstrates that, but he also has a very confidential secret agenda. That is to experience Radha Krishna Pranaya in the role of Srimati Radharani. So as you know, he can't do that as Krishna. The position of Srimati Radharani, you could say, is foreign to him, foreign to Krishna. But then again, you have to remember, Chincha Beda Beda Tattva, the potency is the same as the potent. Then again, they're different. So how does Krishna resolve this? He resolves this situation. He resolves this puzzle by appearing as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Radha Krishna combined. So again, let's remember Bhagavad Gita. Urva Moolam Adoshaka. The tree reflected on the river is upside down. The reflection is upside down. So what is the most exalted thing in the spiritual world becomes the most abominable thing in the material world. In the material world, everyone's hung up on romantic affairs. Where does that come from? So Krishna is deliberating. I haven't distributed this love of myself. I haven't distributed the flavors of rasa in such a long time. Without doing that, the material world has no value for me. Krishna is explaining his innermost thinking. What's the use of the material world without the most intimate flavors of bhakti? And then Krishna admits, love of me affected by awe and reverence doesn't really, as we would say, doesn't really turn me on. It has value, but without the distribution of confidential love for me in the loving exchanges, the material world, what's the point? But only Krishna can distribute those flavors. Only Krishna can demonstrate how to be an aspirant for those flavors. So he does that as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Kaviraj Goswami is establishing the reasons for Lord Chaitanya's appearance. We say, Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prem Pradayate, Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya, Namane Gaur to say Namaha. Most magnificent, no other avatar. And of course, we explain that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is technically not an avatar. He's Swayam Bhagavan. But still, he descends, he comes from the spiritual world, from the spiritual realm. So you can say in that sense, avatar. Avatar means that which comes down, like an elevator. And what is he doing? Giving most munificently the loving flavors. Showing how to sample those flavors and distributing the taste. He's Krishna giving Krishna away. So this two combining as one, and then the one separating into two, will fascinate you eternally. You can read these chapters in Chaitanya Charitamrita over and over again. Chapter 3, Chapter 4 of Adi Leela, and you'll never get to the bottom of it. That's why the purport starts. And I love the way Srila Prabhupada refers to Radha and Krishna as the two transcendentalists. Think about it. They're a puzzle to materialists. The above description of Radha and Krishna from the diary of Srila Swarup Damodar Goswami is a condensed explanation, but one needs great spiritual insight to understand the mystery of these two personalities. So how are we going to get that great spiritual insight? The quest is being laid out before us, and the goal, how to understand the two transcendentalists, Radha and Krishna. So many persons want to enter into Radha Krishna Leela, but it is very difficult unless you go the route of Sri Sri Gaur Nitai. They're Krishna and Balaram coming as Gaur Nitai and making it easy to understand Radha and Krishna and approach them. So as Srila Prabhupada explains in one purport in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's so many devotees in Vrindavan hankering for entering Radha Krishna Leela, but it's very difficult unless you go through Sri Sri Gaur Nitai. So let's hear more about the successful way to approach Radha and Krishna Leela. This is our highest aspiration. How do we make it? How do we begin, and how do we tread on the path to Radha Krishna Leela. Hints are given, not simply hints, but loud, bold instructions are given by the acharyas. How surrender to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu brings you shelter at the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna. This is what you have going for you. Because you might think, and you're right, Radha Krishna Leela, oh, so far beyond us. We're just trying to control our mind and senses. And here we're dealing with Adi Rasa, the original boy-girl affairs of the pure spiritual world, beyond Vaikuntha. This is a very important point, that Mahaprabhu is giving beyond Vaikuntha. Because Krishna himself says, it doesn't really excite me, this Vaikuntha worship. It's perfect, but there's something more. So let's turn to Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati, who in Krishna Leela is Tunga Vidya, the Gopi Tunga Vidya. In Gaura Leela, Prabodhananda Saraswati is the uncle of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. And he also met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu during Mahaprabhu's tour of South India. So what does he explain? He gives the golden gateway that makes everything possible. But if you ignore that golden gateway, nothing is possible in this age of Kali. You won't attain Shri Shri Radha and Krishna. Yata Gaura Padara Vinde. Vindeta Bhaktim Krita Punya Rasihi. Tata Tatot Sarpati Hridya Kasmat Radha Padamboja Sudam Surasihi. As much as you surrender, this is the secret, as much as you surrender to the lotus feet of Sri Gauranga, you will find yourself situated in the service of Radha and Govinda. Don't try to approach Radha and Govinda directly. If you do, there can be difficulty. But the lotus feet of Sri Gauranga will take you there safely. So this is our program. Servitude to Gauranga Mahaprabhu. And through that service, the lotus feet of Srimati Radharani become known to you. So the acharyas are pointing out the unity in serving Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement and Radha Krishna Leela. I remember there was a controversy in Los Angeles in the mid-70s when the book distribution boom had just started. And the Sankirtan devotees were enthusiastic, of course, as they should be today, and they were saying something that to many sounded very strange. They were saying, you know, the verse in Guru Vastika, Nikunjayuno Ratikere Siddhaya Yayali Bir Yukti Apekshaniya. The spiritual master is always assisting the gopis in meeting with Krishna. So they were saying, that verse applies to the Sankirtan devotees. And so many devotees were outraged. Oh, this is really fanatical. This is really over the top. You mean book distributors are doing Nikunjayano Ratikeli Siddhaya? Wow, way out there. We've got to report this to Srila Prabhupada, as everything then was. And the reply shocked everyone. Srila Prabhupada replied, yes, it is true. So that should make you think deeply how the service to Gauranga brings you, transports you to the lotus feet of Srimati Radharani. Otherwise, you might think, oh, I'm not doing the highest thing, or I don't have the highest activity. Service to Gauranga turns into service to Radha and Krishna. Of course, we should know about this process. We should be aware of it. That will make your progress more significant, it'll make your progress more dynamic if you know what's going on. Whether you know or not, it is going on. The service to Gauranga transforms into service to Radha and Krishna. But it's better if you have full consciousness of what's happening, so that you yourself have that understanding and can stick to that understanding and the activities that are based on the understanding. So, this is the so-called secret, which is actually why we are so outreach focused. Certainly, of course, we want to care for devotees. That's the other half of our program, in-reach and outreach. Caring for devotees, that's the in-reach, and giving Lord Chaitanya's mercy to others, that's the outreach. So, we can continue. As much as you devote your full attention to the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya, to that extent, you'll be able to taste the nectarian service of the lotus feet of Srimati Radharani in Vrindavan. The more you engage in the service of Sri Chaitanya, the more you'll find yourself in Vrindavan, tasting the nectar of the service of Sri Radha. So this is Prabodhananda Saraswati from his text, Chaitanya Chandramrita. Now what does Bhaktivinoda Thakur have to say about all this? In his Navadip Dham Mahatmya, he explains, now with Krishna there are 5 relationships. You all know that. Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, Madhurya. So how does that apply to Sri Gauranga? Since so much of our program in ISKCON is serving Sri Gauranga, carrying out his wishes. And in fact, that is one difference between a Kanishthadakari and a Madhyamadakari. The Kanishthadakari is just focused on a neophyte conception of temple worship. What's in it for me? Whereas the Madhyamadakari wants to give Krishna to others. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that first you serve Gauranga in the mood of Shanta and Dasya, awe and reverence and active service. By doing that, you gain Krishna's service in the other rasas. So this is the height of bhakti mysticism. How through the lotus feet of Gauranga in Shanta and Dasya, because you cannot serve Gauranga in any other mood in any other flavor than Shanta and Dasya. By doing that, you are serving Radha and Krishna. You're at the lotus feet of Srimati Radharani. The more you understand this, the more potent your service will become. But even if you don't understand it, it's happening, but you may not stick to it if you don't understand what's going on. So I repeat, by first worshiping Gauranga, this is Bhaktivinoda Thakur, by first worshiping Gauranga in the mood of Shanta and Dasya, the devotee attains Krishna's service in Sakya, Vatsalya, Madhurya. Gradually, by serving Gauranga, the devotee's eternally perfect relationship with Krishna manifests in the course of such a devotee's devotional service. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur goes on to explain, whoever makes a distinction between Gauranga and Krishna is contemptible and will never attain a relationship with Krishna. So now Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes humility. In the association of devotees, one who possesses the qualities beginning with humility will first worship Gauranga in dasya, or servitude, relationship. So this dasyaras, servant of Lord Chaitanya, is the highest mood, the highest flavor in the worship of Gauranga. You can't do Madhurya Ras with Gauranga. You can't do it. So first, there's the humility that let me be the servant of Gauranga. And then you don't have to artificially worry what will become of me, but you should know what will become of you. So when devotees, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, call Sri Chaitanya Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu, they're acknowledging their relationship of dasya, servitude to Gauranga. So once you are qualified in Madhurya Ras, what are you actually doing? You're worshiping Radha and Krishna, who are Gauranga. But you can't worship Gauranga in the mood of, in the rasa of Madhurya Ras. But when your worship of Gauranga reaches full maturity, you're worshiping Gauranga in the form of Radha and Krishna. So at that time, one's worship of Gaura Hari qualifies him to worship Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. So what happens to Gauranga? Do you push him aside? How can you push Gauranga aside when Gauranga is Radha and Krishna combined? So Gauranga then drowns the devotee in the nectar of Radha and Krishna's eternal pastimes, which the devotee enters as he attains Vrindavan. So again, this is the mystery, the puzzle. The two become one and the one becomes two. All this becomes known to the faithful, humble servant of Sri Gauranga. And how do you render faithful, humble service to Sri Gauranga? Jare deko tare koho Krishna upadesh. Arma agya guru hoya taro edesh. Wherever you go, whomever you meet, teach the science of Krishna. That is serving Gauranga in dasya. And through that service, that which is real humility, the doorway to Radha and Krishna opens up. And then you can see both realities simultaneously. There's Radha Krishna, there's Gauranga, and you're not bewildered so much anymore by when do the two become one, when does the one become two. It's all going on. So these are the jewels, priceless jewels that await the faithless servant of Sri Gauranga. So this verse from the diary of Swarup Damodar is very important. And Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami will go deep into this verse by first establishing Radha Tattva, then establishing Krishna Tattva, and then showing how the two go together in Radha Krishna Tattva. So in the next verses he's going to say, now to enjoy rasa, they have appeared in one body as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore I shall first delineate the position of Radha and Krishna. From that description, the glory of Lord Chaitanya will be known. So you can read this chapter over and over again eternally and never get to the bottom of it. All right, any questions? Yes.
The service to Mahaprabhu strictly means preaching?
Somehow or other be connected with giving Krishna to others. The frontline soldiers are necessary, as well as the suppliers. It's all connected. In a properly run Krishna conscious organization, everything is connected to fulfilling the order of Lord Chaitanya. Wherever you go, whomever you meet, teach the science of Krishna. Now, it is true that there is some special flavor in directly giving Krishna to others. So everyone can, at least at some time, participate in that. But still, you need everyone's contribution. Front lines, support lines, everyone is needed. But still, there's no doubt, as anyone can experience, when you yourself, at least for a while, participate in the direct activity of giving Krishna to others, by chanting, by book distribution, by prasad distribution, you feel a special spiritual delight. At the same time, without the backup to the front lines can't exist. Without the books being produced, what are you going to distribute? Without someone getting permits for your book distribution at shopping centers, where are you going to go? So it's all connected. Still, there's a special flavor in personally taking a step to give Krishna others. So we have to have a mature understanding. We're not fanatical, and nor are we aspiring to be just Kanishtadhikaris, who just acknowledge temple worship and nothing more. Yes.
Is there anyone that's not qualified for Lord Chaitanya's mercy?
He asked, is there anyone not qualified for Lord Chaitanya's mercy? If you think that you're not qualified for Lord Chaitanya's mercy, you are actually then the most qualified. This is another mystery of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan movement. The more unqualified you think you are, the more qualified you are. That's how Rupa and Sanatana Goswami presented themselves to Lord Chaitanya. They say, you're Patita Pavana. That's your reputation, deliverer of the most fallen. Well, let us tell you, if you want your reputation to be justified, you have to deliver us, because we're the worst. If you deliver us, your reputation will be justified, you'll be glorified throughout the universe. But let us tell you one thing, let's make one humble submission. If you're looking for the most fallen persons and you overlook us, that's a great mistake, because you won't find anyone worse than us. They really meant that. On the other hand, of course, we don't want to attract false prestige to ourselves by thinking, I am the most fallen. We're so insignificant. We're not the most anything. But Rupa and Sanatana Goswami were actually feeling that way, honestly. They weren't just saying it, Prabhu, I'm the most fallen. They weren't saying that mechanically or superficially. They actually felt that way. Otherwise, how is it that in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami says, Jagai Madai Hoite Muni Se Lagista. I'm lower than a worm in stool. I'm more sinful than Jagai and Madai. Is he just speaking poetry? He really feels that way. This is a symptom of ecstatic love of Krishna. That although everyone else can see that you're so qualified, the devotee himself, herself thinks, I'm so unqualified. This is dainya, humility, genuine humility as described in Brihad Bhagavatamrita by Sanatana Goswami. Everyone else sees you're so expert, you're doing such wonderful service, but you yourself feel, I'm so sinful, I'm so condemned. How can that be when everyone else recognizes your service as so glorious? This is one of the mysteries of love of Krishna. That's why Lord Chaitanya says, if you see tears in my eyes while chanting Hare Krishna, while I'm chanting Hare Krishna, you should know it's just a drama performance. Why? What's the proof? Because if I actually loved Krishna, I would have died long ago from separation. But I'm still living. That's the proof I have no love for Krishna. I should be dead because who can handle separation from Krishna? Krishna is so infinitely attractive and beautiful. But I'm feeling separation, vipralamba bhava. And I'm still alive. That means it's just a show when I cry in chanting Hare Krishna. Yes.
Thank you for the class. What would you recommend as the best prayer we can offer to Lord Chaitanya as a meditation?
There's so many prayers in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Here's one of them. This is from Rupa Goswami. Lord Krishna desired to taste the limitless nectarian mellows of the love of one of his multitude of loving damsels, Sri Radha. And so he has assumed the form of Lord Chaitanya. He has tasted that love while hiding his own dark complexion with her effulgent yellow color. May that Lord Chaitanya confer upon us his grace. That's text 52 of chapter 4 of the Adi Lila, taken from a book by Rupa Goswami called Stavamala. So all the gems are there in Chaitanya Charitamrita, all the cream of the Goswami literature. But just to assist devotees who have thoroughly equipped themselves with Prabhupada's books, we at the BBT are working on top quality renditions of Goswami literature. For those who have thoroughly established themselves in Srila Prabhupada's books, which are the main meal, there will be these a la carte items for your transcendental delight. So we're working on the books by Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Jiva Goswami. Anything else? Yes. Did you raise your hand? Speak louder, please. Lord Chaitanya doesn't like hypocrisy. Jagai and Madai were recognized out-and-out sinners. But Chota Haridas was in the renounced order of life. And so Lord Chaitanya wanted to demonstrate very strict standard. Even the associates of Lord Chaitanya went to him and said, what Chota Haridas did was so slight. Why are you abandoning him? It didn't work. The explanation given by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, as presented by Srila Prabhupada at the end of the chapter, is that the activities of Lord Chaitanya are very grave and deep as the ocean. See, you might say, what kind of explanation is that? He banished Chota Haridas? Is that it? But grave means you can't always understand. Now, Srila Prabhupada, when he was asked, well, when your devotees make a mistake, why don't you banish them like Lord Chaitanya did to Chota Haridas? What was Prabhupada's response? I'm not Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I need all the help I can get. Any nice question? Do you have any more? Yes. I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Past, present, and future goes on simultaneously.
Yes.
Can you elaborate a bit more on that?
She's asking me to elaborate on the spiritual reality in which the past, present, and future occur simultaneously. What more can be said than that? So therefore, as I explained, when you say, when Radha and Krishna became one as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and when the one, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, became Radha and Krishna, you're implying step 1, step 2, step 3. But that's because you do that because the conditioned brain, the conditioned mind rather, can't think, can't operate outside of past, present, and future. This, as our student of philosophy there can tell you. It was a Kant who pointed out the human brain, we know as the mind, structures everything according to its limitations. So, whenever you hear of Radha Krishna becoming one and the one becoming two, automatically you're thinking in terms of time. That's why it's very important to read the Shastras submissively without imposing your conceptions. And you get the strength and intelligence to do that by devotional service. Otherwise, it'll be natural for you to impose the structures of your mind upon Krishna Lila. Think about that. Are you ready? Shri Gauranga Mahaprabhu ki! Gaura Purnima ki!